What's going on, guys? This is Boom Toasted Gaming with a quick PUBG tips video. Now, this video isn't designed for the top tier elite players, but more so for the beginner or someone trying to sharpen up their game where they may be neglecting something, preventing them from getting that chicken dinner. And lastly, before we get into it, I am by no means a professional player. I am oftentimes playing with people better than me, but I'm continuously learning and improving my game. And these are some of the skills that, as I've grown and gotten better, that have helped me. So I figure I'd make a video of my top tips and help you guys out. Let's get started. Get a good headset. Now, sound is incredibly important in PUBG, probably more so than most other video games. Being able to hear broken windows, shots fired, or nearby footsteps can definitely save your life and give you the opportunity to get a kill that you wouldn't have otherwise. With a good gaming headset, you'd be surprised about how much you can hear. You can quickly pinpoint exactly where shots are coming from, hear enemy footsteps nearby that can tip you off to their position, and you can even hear people's footsteps in nearby buildings who are looting around and unaware of your presence, which can allow you to get the drop on them. I used to play with a pair of normal earbuds until I got a gaming headset, and now I'll never go back. Next, the free look feature. Now, this feature is probably pretty obvious to most experienced players, but some beginners don't even realize that it's a function. But if you hit on Xbox the RB button or on PlayStation the R1 and hold it down, you're allowed to look around you while your character continues to look in his current direction. So say if you're running in a straight line and you hold down RB or R1, you're allowed to spin the camera around your player so that you can continue to look around while your character's doing whatever he's doing. Say you're running away from the blue zone, but you want to cover your back. Now you're able to do that. Now this is very important because as you're running, perhaps there's an enemy behind you trying to line up a shot, and if you see him, you can continue to run acting like you don't know he's there until you finally get the piece of cover in which you can take it and fire at him while he's exposed. Additionally, this function allows you to spin the camera around you and see enemies who probably wouldn't be in your normal line of sight. Perhaps you're running into one set of houses and you see out of the corner of your eye another enemy running into another one that you wouldn't have seen normally if you weren't free looking. Overall, free looking just gives you a better situational awareness and oftentimes allows you to prevent an enemy from getting the drop on you. Next, get comfortable. Whether it be through using the training camp or hot dropping constantly, get comfortable firing your weapon. Oftentimes beginners want to drop into the least populated area, grab a weapon, and basically hide until they make it to the top 20 or 30. And as soon as they encounter an enemy, they die and get frustrated with the game because they waited so long to find someone and can't get the kill when they finally do. Instead, players should use the training camp to put the attachments that they like on their favorite guns and practice what it feels like to shoot that weapon, and drop into the hot drop areas such as school, boot camp, Paradise Resort, Camp Alpha, Camp Bravo, Camp Charlie, and so on, so that they feel what it's like to get into a firefight. And either they win and have now good loot, or they lose and they get right back into the next fight. But practicing what it's like to be in a gunfight shakes off that rust and keeps you on your toes for the next inevitable gunfight. Next, heal in the middle of fights. Oftentimes you can be in a firefight with someone and they inflict enough damage on you, or if you poke yourself out again, they're going to easily finish you off. Instead, use that cover to protect yourself from them and use the first aid real quick to heal yourself so you can get back in that fight. Don't be so eager to have to put shots down range to the point where it gets you killed. First, make sure you have enough health to engage, then engage. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this next one, but use the peek and lean function. There's a huge difference in the amount of body that is exposed when you lean and when you just completely step out from cover to shoot. It's a much harder target to hit when you use that peek and lean function, so get comfortable with that. Next, think one step ahead, always. Now, while you're playing PUBG, there's always times for you to be thinking, what would you do next? What would you do in this situation? As you're running up to a set of buildings, Run along a path that would provide you cover in case someone started shooting at you. Be looking behind you and think about what you would do if someone came up behind you. While you're running along a trail, constantly be looking behind pieces of cover, expecting there to be enemies there. Don't just blindly run around, but constantly be making a plan for what would happen next if X, Y, and Z. One quick tip is to put yourself in your enemy's shoes. Think about what you would do if you were in his situation. Which side of the tree would you lean out on? Would you take off running? If you see a bush and you think, hey, that would be a good bush to hide in, look to see if maybe an enemy has already thought that. Thinking ahead and thinking like the enemy can oftentimes get you a kill. Next, don't sit still. Now this is one I'm sure a lot of beginner players can make, and even those who have been playing the game for a while are still guilty of. So say you're sniping and you're taking cover behind a rock. Don't fall into a false sense of security thinking that no one can see you and you just remaining still in between your shots. One, by shooting, you're exposing your position to some degree. And if someone sees you and you're sitting still, they're just gonna wait for that easy headshot and take it. Whereas if you're constantly moving around that joystick where you're just jiggling around in between shots, you're a much harder shot to make, and oftentimes people will leave you alone because they're not confident in their ability to kill you. Lastly, I have a couple of in-game tips that I might go into in more depth in a future video. But first, I hate going prone, especially in the end. Oftentimes you'll catch people going prone, but this is a huge mistake. Especially in the end game, the enemy is looking all over for you and there's not a whole lot of area to look in. So seeing a body laying prone on the ground, you're a sitting duck. First of all, your ability to fire is greatly reduced as your range of motion is restricted because you're laying prone. Secondly, if you're taking fire, the ability to run away is gone. And this goes back to not sitting still, especially in the end game. Going prone is the most sitting still that you can do. And once you've taken fire, there's no getting away from it. Now granted, there are times where you're not gonna have cover. And if you don't have cover, at least you can use concealment. And that's when prone is acceptable. But other than that, I would stray away from it. Next, in the end game, use your boost. Now when there's about 20 people left, I start filling up my boost meter so that if I take damage, I start passively healing and you start maxing out your health as quick as possible so that you can get back into those fights. You don't want to run around to the final fight and die because maybe you saw the enemy but you had less health and you could have stopped that had you boosted up earlier. Next, don't loot enemy bodies at the end game. Now if there's something you desperately need, like a new helmet or vest because yours is busted, or say any first aids or boost, quickly loot for those specific items and get out of there. Don't get greedy and get caught looting for supplies that you don't even need when there's only a couple of enemies left. Lastly, I will say watch other players. Go on YouTube and watch your favorite YouTubers play PUBG and just study how they play. My favorites personally are The Average Sniper, Stone Mountain 64, Fuglet, and others. But whoever it may be, watch and study how they play. I personally stay away from studying people like Shroud or Choco Taco, who are the super elite players who, you know, I have no chance of being that good. But learn from people more on your level who you can quickly take on the tactics that they are using to make yourself better. Going along with that, if you make it to like the top 10 and die, stick around to the end to watch how other players play. I always do this, and I oftentimes find myself learning a thing or two by watching the winners. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, more good stuff coming on Boom Toasted Gaming.